Hello, everyone. So we're just waiting for more people to filter in, and we'll begin in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, why don't you let us know where you're watching from? And let me know if you can hear me. Perfect. Oh, wow, we got people from all over the place. Los Angeles, Barbados, France, Austria, Germany. Wow, this is awesome. So exciting to have all of you here today. We'll just give people a couple more minutes and then we'll jump right in. All right, so let's begin.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Venngage Good&Co webinar on creating infographic resumes. I'm Elaina Ransford, the Senior Content Strategist at Good&Co. Good&Co is a self-discovery app that helps users love where they work. Through a series of fun, interactive quizzes, our users are given a professional persona, which they can compare against hundreds of companies and thousands of people. Good&Co's proprietary psychometric algorithm stems from over 20 years of career psychometrics and psychological analysis, helping people identify their professional style for better fit with employers and teams. My job, though, is mainly comprised of overseeing our blog, which offers career advice, inspiration, job search advice, and psychometric data and analyses. One of the best aspects of my job is helping new graduates figure out how to enter an increasingly competitive job market. This ranges from giving advice on what to wear to an entry-level job at a law firm versus a hosting job at a restaurant, to offering free resources such as resume templates. Our blog readers are primarily millennials, and one of the biggest struggles for them as a generation is figuring out how to translate expertise from a college degree into marketable job skills. I'm super stoked about this webinar because we'll be giving you one piece of that puzzle, the resume. Sara McGuire of Venngage will explain how to make a visually appealing and informative infographic resume, and I will outline how to best present your various skills and experience through this medium.
Cool. So hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a content editor over at Venngage. We're a cloud-based infographics creation software offering a library of infographic templates and customizable charts. We actually started out as an infographic resume creation software called Visualize Me before pivoting to offer our services to marketers, educators, HR professionals, and small business owners. So in my role, I oversee the Venngage blog, where we post in-depth guides to design, marketing, and original research. And I also write for a number of small business and marketing sites, including business.com, Business to Community, The Content Strategist, Social Media Today, and Lifehack. All right, so let's get started. So in this webinar, we will teach you why you should use an infographic resume, when you should use an infographic resume, what information you should include in an infographic resume, how to find your story to tell through your infographic resume, and how to create an infographic resume. So let's ask the question that begs to be answered. Why should you create an infographic resume? An infographic resume might be a bit intimidating at first. You might not have a lot of design experience, or you might be afraid that creating an infographic resume would be too much of a risk. But making a sleek, beautiful infographic resume doesn't have to be hard if you have the proper tools and an understanding of some basic design principles. And it's something that's really worth considering. Why? Elaina's got some stats for you.
So did you know that recruiters spend on average 6 to 7 seconds looking at each resume they receive? Yeah, that's not a lot of time. Also, according to a report by Career X-Roads that analyzed 250 companies, the average job posting receives about 74 applications. And according to a Career Builder study, 1 in 5 managers spend less than 30 seconds reviewing applications. That's why one of the main things we write at Good.Co is how to get a recruiter's attention, as well as how not to get a recruiter's attention. Boomboxes are better left to the movies, guys. The two most essential things to communicate are how good of a fit you'd be with the company and what your particular strengths are. Aside from just listing experience, though, these are difficult things to communicate. We do it by giving our users a strengths card, which outlines the user's unique personality strengths based on a series of quizzes that they take. As you can see, my strengths are that I'm a go-getter, an idealist, and an inventor. Our proprietary algorithm lets people check their compatibility, what we call fit score, with virtually any company you could think of, as well as with thousands of fellow app users. You can determine before an interview how well your personality works with not only the company, but with your potential future boss and future coworkers. We've found some interesting things. Companies like Facebook that claim to be all about creativity and freedom of expression in the workplace are actually more traditional than, say, Microsoft. And in finding this, we've been able to prepare candidates for what they're really in store for when they apply to any of these places. Because at the end of the day, whether or not a candidate and job will be a good fit comes down in large part to personality and individual strengths and how well these match with the company's culture. How do you demonstrate your fit for a job in a resume, though? This is one of the most commonly asked questions, especially for new grads who don't necessarily have the experience, but do have the intelligence, drive, and personality. We at Good&Co can give you your strengths and your fit with the company and other employees, but it's on you to present this information in a memorable format. So I'm going to turn this over to Sara, who will give you a step-by-step for how to create an insanely creative and eye-catching resume, one that is sure to hold a recruiter's attention for more than 6 seconds.
All right, so let's start with a little exercise. Which resume is more interesting to look at? This one? Or this one? Probably this one, right? So look, the first resume is fine. It's a neatly organized, straightforward resume, but it looks like every other resume, doesn't it? But the second resume, it makes a statement. There's color, there's charts, and there's personality. So actually back in 2011, Chris Spurlock was a student looking to break into the journalism field, and he created this infographic resume, and it got picked up by the Huffington Post. It went viral, and soon after, the Huffington Post actually offered him a job. And the Huffington Post aren't the only ones who are impressed by infographic resumes. A poll conducted by Beyond.com found that over 57% of HR professionals polled said that an infographic or visual resume would help them evaluate candidates more quickly. That being said, this presentation does come with one caveat. So we're not trying to tell you that you should replace your traditional resume entirely with an infographic resume. That just isn't practical. There will be circumstances where image resumes aren't accepted, like in the case of many job application systems that aren't able to scan an image. Rather, use an infographic resume as a supplementary document to help set you apart from other applicants and to help seal the deal. So with that in mind, let's jump right in and ask the question, when is the right time to use an infographic resume? So according to Hannah Morgan, who is author of the book titled The Infographic Resume, and who is the site owner of careersherpa.net, you should use an infographic resume if you are seeking a job in a creative field, such as design, marketing, or advertising. If you are seeking a data analyst or data visualization occupation, both of which are currently on the rise. When you're applying to smaller companies and startups with fewer resources for screening resumes, since they tend to look for standout candidates who can demonstrate multifaceted skills and an entrepreneurial spirit. When you want to summarize your personal qualifications and provide proof that you can simplify complex data and present it creatively. When you want to share your resume on social media and on your site, blog, or online portfolio, and when you're emailing the hiring manager directly or an internal contact directly. So remember, when in doubt, send your classic resume and keep your infographic resume handy as an added proof of your qualifications. So now that you know when to use an infographic resume, let's go over what information you should include in it. So you should treat your infographic resume as a one-page introduction to you, your skills, your personality, your general experience. So don't worry about including too many specifics and examples because you can go into that in more detail in your traditional resume. So the purpose of an infographic resume is to grab the reader's attention and to give them a sense of who you are and what you have to offer. So your resume, traditional or otherwise, should always answer these three questions. Can you do the job? Will you do the job? And will I like working with you, I being the person who's interviewing you? So the kind of information you include should all help to answer those questions. And an infographic resume offers the unique opportunity to express your creativity and personality through its design, which will also help answer those three questions. So an infographic resume also offers you a better opportunity to tell your story. So now Elaina's going to give you some tips on finding your story to tell through your infographic resume.
Thanks, Sarah. A big part of that story is who you are. That's why Good&Co gives users their unique personality type and strengths and allows them to compare those strengths and traits to hundreds of different company cultures. Determine how your story plays into the story of the company that you are applying to. Make sure to include other aspects of your life besides just work experience in your resume. While discussing your penchant for online bridge may seem like something you should avoid in an interview, employers actually look for hires with unusual interests. In fact, a study from the Kellogg School of Management showed that many employers are now using a candidate's hobbies as a key indicator of cultural fit. Numerous employers even indicated that hobbies can be as important as qualifications and experience.
So your aim should be to really give your infographic resume your own personal flair. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the process for designing your infographic resume. So the first thing you need to do is plan out your resume, and there are five steps, in the planning phase. The first is to come up with a concept. The second is to decide which information you'll include. The third is to pick a template that will best present your information. The fourth is to pick your data visualizations. And the fifth is to personalize your design. So let's go into each of those planning steps in a bit more detail. So the first step is to pick a concept or overarching metaphor or a theme that fits your story. This concept will guide your design choices. So how far you stretch your concept is up to you, but remember that it must always be easy to understand for the reader. So here's an example of someone who has taken their theme and really stretched it to create a very original infographic resume. Take this infographic resume that's designed to look like a subway map, and it shows that how the job's applicants' different skills have intersected over the course of his career. So it's very creative, very out there. Now, you don't have to take it this far if you don't feel confident in your design skills. Your design could simply use the concept as a motif for the embellishments that you use or the color scheme that you use. So for instance, take this example that uses a wood motif to present the applicant's interior design experience. And the colors are soft and green, evoking nature and calm. So it's a bit of a pulled back way of using that same kind of idea of an overarching theme. And so once you know the approach you're going to take, you can then decide what information to actually include in your resume. So you won't be able to include all of the information that you have in your traditional resume. You're going to have to be selective. So remember that the resume should always answer the three questions: can you do the job? Will you do the job? And will I like working with you? So because infographics are on the lighter side when it comes to text, include only the most important and compelling information in your resume. Keep in mind that the design should complement the information and vice versa. In an infographic, word and image exist in a symbiotic relationship. So the information that you include should be the core information. Highlight the information that will help propel your story. So information that readers can connect with emotionally. Infographic resumes are perfect for this because they often elicit a more immediate and visceral reaction than text does. So I suggest including, of course, your most relevant skills, places you've worked, both the companies you've worked at and where your past positions have taken you across the world. It's always interesting if you've been to different places. Your hobbies, passions, and interests. So like Elaina already talked about, your hobbies and personal interests will communicate whether or not you're a good cultural fit. You could also include what inspires you, and you could include your goals, both for the position you're applying for and maybe where you want your career to go eventually. And because you'll be relying on visuals and minimal text to tell your story, you'll need to condense the information. So here are some quick tips to help you decide what information to include. Of course, use point form lists instead of full paragraphs. Keep paragraphs, if you do have them, very short, 1 to 3 sentences maximum. Look for ways to visualize information using charts, graphs, and pictograms. And we're going to get more into that a little bit later. So remember that the benefit of an infographic resume is that you're not staring at a wall of text. Rather, you're being engaged by compelling visuals, charts, and concise text. So now you can pick a layout that will best present your information. I suggest using a template to start with if you're new to design, since it will give you a solid framework to build off of and personalize. I'm not a designer by vocation, so I always start with a template, and from there it's really easy to personalize and make it your own. And so you could really go any direction with this, but I have highlighted 3 very basic types of infographic resume layouts that work well. And they're the sectional layout, timeline layout, data visualization centric layout, and I'm going to go into each of those individually. So the first one is a sectional layout, and a sectional layout still resembles the format of a traditional resume in that information is organized into sections with headers. This kind of layout is a fairly safe bet if you don't want to take too much of a risk with your resume. The example I've pulled here uses simple pictograms to indicate skill level, and the applicant's contact information is presented using icons. So it's not totally out there, but it's still a bit more interesting and more visual than a basic resume. So the second one is a timeline layout, and you guessed it, it uses a timeline as the backbone of the design. So you can orient your script either portrait or landscape. So like we saw in Chris Spurlock's example at the beginning, that was landscape, something a bit different. So this is another easy way to put a visual twist on a traditional design. So in the example here, the timeline divides the work experience from other more education-related experience to show how both contributed to the applicant's qualifications. So the infographic follows a similar format again as a traditional resume, where the more recent experience is at the top, and then the timeline takes the reader backwards through time. So it's very simple, but more creative than your standard resume. And a data visualization centric layout takes the data viz theme and makes that the focus of the design. So while most infographic resumes will incorporate data viz in some way, these layouts typically only have some very minimal introductory text and will let the graphs do most of the talking. So the example we've used here uses a combination of map charts, pictograms, bar charts, and even a pie chart to visualize different types of information. And as you can see, the visuals focus more on the impact of the applicant that they had in their past positions as opposed to the specific tasks that he worked through. But a data viz-centric layout could also focus, again, on one big thematic data viz, like a map or a pie chart, or like this one that we already looked at. So it's really up to you. So before you begin your design, you'll need to give some thought into what information you're going to present as the data visualizations. So there are seriously so many different creative ways that you could turn information into graphs. I've listed a couple. You could break down your skill level into pie charts, bar graphs, or pictograms. You could present your achievements through charts by quantifying it in terms of like number of cases you closed, sales targets you've reached, etc. You could show a map of places you've worked. You could show skills in a bubble chart, create a timeline. Whichever way you choose to go with your data visualizations, just keep in mind that the purpose of using them is to make your experience, skills, and qualifications easier and more interesting to understand. So once you have the planning done, you can start designing your infographic resume. So I'm going to walk you through an example of how I turned a boring traditional resume into a sleek, beautiful infographic resume. And just real quick, if anyone is coming into this webinar late, we are recording this webinar and we will be sending it to all of the attendees afterwards. All right, so here's a basic traditional resume belonging to a fictional applicant I have named Jane. Jane is looking for a position to advance her career in the marketing field, so she wants to showcase her creativity. Jane wants to stand out from other applicants, but she doesn't want to go too wild with her design. She thinks of herself as a go-getter and wants to showcase her skills, her areas of expertise, and the different places where she has helped clients around the world. So in this case, a sectional layout will work well. She can use a combination of text and small data visualizations to create a resume that's fresh but not too out there. So first, what we need to do is pull the most compelling information. So like Jane's introductory summary, her experience, the different places across the world where she has helped clients, and her relevant skills. So we're going to use this template from Venngage's Premium Templates library, and we're going to use it as a base, but we're going to customize it to fit Jane's experience and her persona and her personal brand. So I've also circled some points that I think could be turned into data visualizations. Her skills can be visualized using pie charts to represent skill level, and the point about where her clients have come from across the world could be turned into a map. The original template we're using doesn't have a map, but we're going to add one in. And I'm also going to turn her work experience into a mini timeline. And then for the rest of the information, we can use a simple design of slick headers and icons to embellish and anchor the points. So as you can see, I removed the original small horizontal timeline that was in the work experience section of the template and instead made a small vertical timeline, starting with Jane's most recent position at the top and then going backwards in time. I also added a map to the bottom of the infographic and used a small circle icon to show the different places around the world where she has helped clients from. And so to fit this, I did have to make the infographic page a bit longer to accommodate the new visuals. So if you're going to do this, just keep in mind that if you're planning on printing your infographic resume, you may want to ensure that you keep the dimensions to fit a standard A1 to A5 paper. But if you're publishing it online, it's fine, it doesn't matter. And so you'll also notice that I'm using a grid to help me align the design elements on the page. It just makes things a lot easier if you do this. So now it's time to add some personal flair. So a good place to start is to pick a color scheme that reflects your persona. So think back to the traits that describe your persona. Are you an energetic person? Are you innovative? Are you considerate? Consider the impression certain colors will make on someone who is viewing your resume for the first time. Do you want your colors to be bold and energetic? Do you want them to be soft and soothing? This diagram gives you an idea of what kind of mood different colors can communicate. So for Jane's resume, I've chosen to edit the colors to create a brighter color scheme using light green and then some orange accents and a lighter, more neutral background. I did this because I've noticed that green is a popular color on a lot of marketing sites and marketer profiles, so I've emulated that in Jane's design because she is looking to advance as a marketer. And green is a color that's fresh, comforting, full of life. And I've kept the font black because it's easy to read. And so as a general rule of thumb, use a dark font for a light background and a light font for a dark background as long as the color doesn't clash. And I've also replaced the header font with a simple, clean font. So remember, more than anything, your infographic resume should always be easy to read. So you'll want to choose fonts that reflect both your persona, but that also appeal to the type of position that you're looking for. So, for example, if you know that you're going to be applying to tech companies, you would want the font you use to appeal to the general kind of tech aesthetic. So let me ask you, have you seen many tech companies using like swirly serif fonts? I know that I haven't really. Tech companies, they tend to go for a more sleek, modern aesthetic using sans serif fonts. So you can appeal to those companies by using one in your infographic resume. And as another general rule of thumb, avoid really intricate fonts that are hard to read. The goal is to make your information interesting and easy to read, not more difficult. So when in doubt, stick to the classics like Helvetica, Georgia, Computer Modern, something like that. So for Jane's infographic resume, I've paired two modern fonts, Oxygen for the headers and Railway for the body text. And for added embellishments and to anchor pieces of text, add some icons to your designs. Icons are super useful in infographic design because they can communicate a concept in one small, space-efficient image. And the most important thing to keep in mind when using icons is to keep the style of icons you use consistent. For example, don't use a mix of thin line art icons with filled in icons. Keep it looking uniform. So for Jane's resume, I've used icons as thematic embellishments. Because I made the page a bit longer, I had space to put in a section for Jane's interests. And then in the contact section, icons indicate the different modes of contact without needing to actually type out phone or email. So in this way, you can see that icons can be both decorative and functional. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to quickly address the question of whether or not you should use a headshot of yourself in your resume, like a picture of your face. Because there is still some debate about whether or not it's appropriate to include a photo of yourself on a resume. And one of the most common arguments against including a photo is that your appearance should really have no bearing on your qualifications for a position. But my argument is that with so many employers already looking up candidates on social media beforehand anyway, the point is kind of becoming moot. Plus, when experts were asked to weigh in on the topic, a lot of them said that it's easier to remember faces than names. And with employers spending such a short amount of time on average looking at your resume, you want your resume to be as memorable as possible. So that being said, it's really up to you whether or not you want to include a picture of yourself on your resume. Use your discretion, kind of get a feel for the company, do some research first, and make a choice. So here you have the final product. So it's a simple but visually interesting infographic resume that is sure to stand out from the pile of traditional resumes that hiring managers receive. Something fresh, something a little different. All right, so with all of this information in mind, you should be equipped to begin creating your own infographic resume. Remember that the best place to start is with a template, and that's why, to give you guys a boost, I'm going to offer everyone in this webinar a one-time discount so you can save 30% on a premium or business account on Venngage. That way you'll have access to our full library of infographic templates, charts, icons, and other features. And after all that, if you try the tool and you don't like it, I'll give you a full refund within 30 days of trying it out. So anyway, here's the code. Write this down because it will only be valid for the next 24 hours. So that code is resume30. And make sure to head over to the Good&Co blog for more awesome job search and career advice. All right, did you guys write down the code? Okay. So this is where Elaina and I sign off. Thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation. It's been a blast. If you have any questions about creating infographics or anything else, feel free to drop me a note. I've given you my email there. Yeah, and make sure to check out the Good&Co blog for more career advice.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. All right, signing off.